Hi everyone, today I'm going to be talking about Bitcoin's perfect monetary policy and why this is a breakthrough in innovation in terms of Bitcoin versus legacy existing financial systems. It is a truly genius invention by Satoshi, and I'll walk through why that's such a smart breakthrough and how any inflation rate is something that introduces weakness into a monetary policy. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the article. So this is a newsletter that I put out every Thursday. If you like what you see here, go to Dan Held on Substack and sign up for it. And so on Thursdays is when this comes out first, and then I cover this on a YouTube appearance on Saturday, hence why you're seeing it now. So Bitcoin's perfect monetary policy. Before we go into monetary policy, let's talk a little bit about prices and what prices mean. So as Saifedean Amos, the writer of the Bitcoin Standard, great person in this space, definitely recommend you follow him and read his book. He says that in a free market economic system, prices are knowledge and the signals that communicate information. Prices are not simply a tool to allow capitalists to profit. They are the information system of economic production, communicating knowledge across the world and coordinating the complex process of production. So essentially, the prices are the coordinating force of a free market. Each individual decision maker can rely on these prices of goods and services to help with their decision making, as the prices themselves are a distillation of all known market information into a single metric. The compression of all relevant market data is ultimately manifested as price. For the more techie-minded folks, this is a one-way hash function. So each individual's buy and sell decisions in turn further shape prices that carry this altered information back out into the market. Some of you may have heard of this as the efficient market hypothesis, which is about how information in the market is reflected in the price of assets like equities. I believe efficient market hypothesis is not predictive, it's more descriptive of the current price. It by default is. If the world felt differently about the price of Apple shares, the price would have been different today. In Bitcoin's price reflects the world's aggregate belief and trust in Bitcoin at this exact moment, manifested into that single metric called the price. Money is the measuring stick. It is the central information utility of the world as a medium of exchange, unit of account, and store of value. It is the critical vessel of information about the conditions of market. George Gilder, a really smart guy who's talked about gold and information theory. And when we dig into this further, capitalist economies are not equilibrium systems, but they're system dynamics domains of entrepreneurial experiments. Money is the measuring stick. It is the standard measure for the outcomes of the entrepreneurial experiments. These experiments are on how to best allocate capital, and money is that standard for efficiency. Making money represents the efficient allocation of capital. Losing money is not an efficient use of capital, and they're punished for that. And competition means decentralized planning by many separate companies and people trying to solve different problems in the market. Now, in the traditional financial world, central banks think that they can control the economy. However, a centrally planned economy can never match the efficiency of an open market because what is known by a single individual or company, an agent, is only a small fraction of the sum of total knowledge held by all members of society. A decentralized economy thus complements the dispersed nature of information spread throughout society. For example, only a restaurant owner is going to know how many steaks to order that night. The Fed or any government entity doesn't know that information. Each company is an attempt to take that local knowledge that it has and create a good or service that ultimately is the correct capital allocation, which then gives them profit. So if that restaurant chooses the correct amount of steaks, then they're going to make a profit. If they don't, then they'll lose money. So central banks have an unsolvable data problem. There's an ingestion, processing, and decision bottleneck, same as any electronic signals processing system. The economy cannot be planned by a central authority because there is no way that a central authority can have all of the necessary knowledge to make the best decision at any point in time, let alone all points in time. To plan effectively, central banks would have to ingest trillions of data points daily, ingest those data points in a perfect manner, which is impossible. And for example, that's every single Uber taken, every single sandwich purchased, and every single in-app purchase. As Philip Tetlock says, we need to believe in a predictable, controllable world. So we turn to authoritative sounding people who promise to satisfy that need. We've created central banks because we want the world to make sense. We want to feel like there's someone in charge. Even if we're not able to ingest perfect data, it is hard to infer simple causality for this complex, chaotic system, which involves billions of decision makers. While determining the relationship between weather and crops might seem easy, how do we determine the causality of burrito demand? Economics isn't like the sciences. We have incomplete or small sample sizes. We can't rerun the experiment of the dot-com bubble with a different central bank or different presidents. Also, since big events come out of nowhere, forecasts may do more harm than good, giving the illusion of predictability in a world where unforeseen events actually control most outcomes. The COVID is a great example of that. As Carl Richards says, risk is what's left over when you think you've thought of everything. Daniel Kahneman also has a great take on the dangers of using history as our guide, saying that hindsight, the ability to explain the past, gives us the illusion that the world is understandable. It gives us the illusion that the world makes sense even when it doesn't make sense. And that's a big deal in producing mistakes in many fields. And a good analogy for this is that imagine the Fed is driving a car, which is the economy, using only the rear view mirror, which is foggy, and the front windshield, which is opaque. How would the Fed possibly drive the car with any accuracy? What if we just let the car self-adjust to the conditions of the road? What is our alternative? Well, it's Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has the perfect monetary policy. Bitcoin is the equivalent of scientific integrity. A system must not permit the manipulation of data after the experiment has taken place. From Adam Tash. Bitcoin keeps the ruler settings fixed so results cannot be altered by the central planning mechanism. And Bitcoin is the perfect iteration on monetary policy because its hard cap exists for several reasons. It's a precise measuring stick. It reduces political attack vectors and encourages speculative bubbles, which act as a viral loop. Its precise length is irrelevant. What matters is that there's a fixed amount. As economic activity moves from such a primitive scale, it becomes harder for individuals to make decisions without having a fixed unit of account in which to compare value. Regarding political attack vectors, Satoshi felt that setting a proper rate of inflation was impossible, so he decided to remove humans from the decision-making process. And he has two quotes regarding the fixed supply that support this conclusion. As Satoshi says, "Indeed, there is nobody to act as a central bank or Federal Reserve to adjust the money supply as the population grows. That would require to have a trusted party to determine that value, because I don't know for a way of software to determine the real-world value of things." I think Satoshi's being a little sarcastic when he mentions a trusted party, because Bitcoin's all about removing that. And Satoshi also says, if there is some clever way, or if we wanted to trust someone, again, I think he's being sarcastic, to actively manage the money supply to peg it to something, the rules could have been programmed for that, but they weren't. And then finally, Satoshi hypothesized that a fixed supply might create speculative bubbles. As the number of users grows, the value per coin increases. It has the potential for a positive feedback loop. As users increase, the value goes up, which could attract more users to take advantage of the increasing value. Satoshi wrote that before Bitcoin was worth a penny. So he hypothesized that by harnessing greed, he could take Bitcoin from 0 to 1, that the price itself is the signal. And as you can see with the chart below, Bitcoin has indeed have had speculative bubbles post-halving. This could be because, and it is hypothesized that this is due to supply shocks, where the Bitcoin supply, newly issued coins decrease per block, demand stays the same. If demand outstrips supply, prices go up, and then the bubble begins again, which draws in more folks, more businesses, more security for the blockchain, etc. So Satoshi essentially built in a viral loop into the core protocol with a supply via halvings. Speculative bubbles just require one primitive trait, like I said before, greed. If Bitcoin's value had stayed constant, none of us would have heard of it. And one final thought here, Bitcoin is stable. The protocol and monetary policy is stable. What we perceive as the instability of Bitcoin's price is merely the instability or volatility of the world coming into the stability of Bitcoin in ebbs and flows. Well, if you enjoyed this, please hit the subscribe button. Also, sign up for the newsletter. It's on Dan Held Substack. If you search Dan Held Substack in Google, you'll find it. But thank you for tuning in today. Hope you enjoyed. Cheers.